So it all started one evening after a long day of doing housework. I was massaging myself. After the long day, I was feeling just a little bit tired, my muscles. So as I was massaging myself, I felt a lump in my right breast. And it felt different from other times I've had issues with my breasts. I'm a mother of two, so in the last two pregnancies, I've had issues with the milk production where I've had a blocked duct before with my breasts. So it was not new, it was not strange, but this one was very different from those ones. And I felt it needed to be checked out. So I went to the hospital, expecting to be told it's another blocked duct or it just will dissolve by itself. But from the first time the doctor felt it, I could tell that she was not. She was concerned. It was an issue of concern for her, so she booked me for an ultrasound. So we did the ultrasound, and from the ultrasound, I think the doctor even kind of panicked because she immediately said, "Don't panic. Everything is going to be okay, but I would like for you to see a specialist to help us understand what we are seeing in the scan." So I went to see a surgeon, and the surgeon booked me for a fine needle test. Did the fine needle test. It was out in a couple of days. I went back to the surgeon and he gave me the news. At this point, I was going for this doctor's visit by myself. We didn't think it was going to be that serious. So my husband, of course, he was in the picture. He knew, he was with me every step of the way, but we didn't think it was going to be that serious. So on this day, I had gone by myself. And when the doctor told me that this was definitely cancer, and his first option, maybe because he's a surgeon, was that we needed to do surgery. And I was immediately booked for it. And then as I went home, I was prepared. I think because that first interaction was very detailed. I knew what was going on. The surgeon had explained everything that was going on and what needed to be done. And so I had understood, and I was ready for the surgery. But then I now made that communication to the rest of my family. My husband and I had already made that decision. We had come to terms with it, and then we shared it with the family. And that's when we received like a million different views, disbelief. There's so many different emotions. They wanted to know, how long has this been? Are you sure this is, because this was in a span of like maybe 14 days. So 14 days sounded like it was too much. I mean, that was so much had happened just within 14 days, and already I was going for surgery. So we put that on hold and started exploring other options. We had second opinion and a third opinion, and going back and forth on whether to start with chemo, whether to start with surgery. And after going round in circles, I eventually made the decision that I wanted to do the surgery first. After consulting with all the oncologists and the surgeons that I had seen, I decided to do the surgery first, and then we go to chemo. And that's what we did. But I can say that took us for another, maybe I say 14 days. So, or more. I think it was like a month after diagnosis. I was still going back and forth on what to do, what next. And that was the worst period of my time, because every night I wasn't sure, like, does this mean I'm not going to wake up tomorrow? Does this mean that every day that I'm not doing something, things are getting worse? So it was the worst time, because you have absolutely no idea what's going on. You have absolutely no control over what is going on. until you get that treatment plan. Then at least you have some semblance of control, because now you know this is the problem, but I have the solution. But at this point, you have no idea what the extent of the problem is, because they have to do the biopsy, they have to do the mapping, they have to do the staging. So that was the worst of it all, because it was emotionally draining. So once we got that out of the way, I began my treatment, and we started out with the surgery, went well, and then after that I went to do my chemotherapy. Started my chemotherapy so this diagnosis was in July. I did the surgery in August and started chemotherapy in September 2022. So we did 8 sessions of chemotherapy, and as everyone who has done chemo will tell you, chemo is not easy. We did that, and then I finished my last session of chemo on 6th of January 2023. Then rested for that January and started my radiotherapy in Nairobi for another 21 sessions. Finished that around March. And started now my clinical visits, and I was put on hormonal therapy. I'm also on supplements for calcium and for the joints. So throughout that journey, there's been a lot. I don't even know where to begin or where to stop or where to start. But I know that the first few weeks were very lonely, because I did not believe that anyone understood what I was going through or what I felt. And even the doctors, I did not believe would understand me. I took to social media to find out more about cancer, breast cancer, the mastectomy, what happens, what does it mean. And I think I got a lot of content from Instagram and TikTok of people documenting themselves the day before surgery, the day after surgery, every other day of surgery, every day of chemo they would document. And from them, I could see what to expect, sort of, to prepare myself before every step. So that was very helpful. At the time you are diagnosed, every person that comes to mind who's had cancer in your mind died within months. But within weeks of now understanding what you're going through and talking to other people, you get to remember the many other survivors that are living. So I also joined a survivor support group. And from there, I could see people who've been alive for 20 years, 27, and that gave me hope. So from the initial point of thinking this was it, to this doesn't have to be the end of the story. So that helped me a lot.
How was the news broken to you, and how did you feel at that particular time?
It was, of course, mixed emotions. You try to keep composure, or else people will wonder what's going on in that office. But the doctor was, I think, very understanding, but he took the approach of he wanted to find out more about myself. What do I do? I think I said my age like a million times in 2022. And what I do, just like a basic profile. So after getting that profile, maybe it was what he used to see how to break the news to me. So he said, this is not the end. This is just the beginning of something different. And explained to me the various options I had. And because I think he was focusing on the solutions, it didn't seem too bad. So that was the first person. When I went for a second opinion, I went to see an oncologist, and that was the last time I saw that oncologist. This guy was referred to me. I was referred to him to get a second opinion. So I went with him with my scans and all the results. And after waiting for, I think maybe 2 hours, he finally showed up. He took my papers, and I was expecting to hear what next, or just to get some direction from him. And he just kept asking, so what do you want? What is this? What is it that you want from me? Don't you know what you have? Isn't it? Have you not read this? You do know how to read? Have you read these reports? You don't know what you have? What is it that you have? It's like he wanted me to say, yes, I have cancer, and I've come here for treatment. But at this point, I've myself not even fully accepted that I have cancer. I just wanted him to look at the scans and then explain to me what next, if at all, I have cancer. That's why it's a second opinion. That, I think, that was the last time I saw that doctor. And the next time I then signed up for a breast clinic. That began another series of, it was not a nice experience going to the hospital. You already have so much on your mind. And then, first of all, you're being taken back and forth. You have long queues. You're queuing for an hour just to get to the counter to be told you're in the wrong queue. You need to get to a different queue. So you get to the next queue, you queue for another 1 hour to get there, and they tell you, hatuna vitabu.
Must have been very hard.
So you get, hakuna kitabu, you go to another place, you talk to someone else, and then they tell you, even if we have the books, you can't be seen today. Today is not the day we see breast cancer patients. So come back next week on Wednesday. So I came back the next week. And the next week, same story, back and forth. I think I snapped. At one time, after going round, and I know I was not the only one, because at the breast clinic, I could see many people. I probably was the only one who was fit to walk around, because you couldn't tell. I was not in pain or anything. But the other people that I could see on the queue were clearly in pain. They had people running around for them. I was with my mom, who's aged. So people thought she's the one who's sick, and I'm the one running around for her. So I snapped at some counter, and I remember I was just screaming. I screamed, and security was now coming to see what's going on. I told them they cannot treat me like this. They should tell me what it is I want. And it turned out the number they were saying I don't have, that I cannot pay without this, it was there. It was there in the papers that I had given the cashier. So eventually she said, okay, I can see it now. Because she was sending me to the back of the queue, and they were being very rude about it. Like, mama, toka uende tafuta hiyo namba ndio urudi kwa hii queue. Unatuzuia watu wengine kupata huduma. So I screamed. I finally, they listened to me. They took the number they wanted. They did all that they needed, and I got the service finally. So that administrative process was not conducive. I remember thinking at one point, if this is it, I'd rather just go home and die. I can't bear to go through this again. Because even the blood test, I took a blood test and the sample disappeared.
Wow.
So the following day, I'm following up my samples, and I'm told, you have to draw blood again. I have thin veins. Drawing that blood is not easy, because they will poke you severally before they get that vein. And while I'm waiting there, the place is packed. There are so many people. Everyone is waiting for their results. It's just not conducive for someone who's you already have so much on your mind. While I was there, I think I saw someone dying while they were still waiting for their blood results. And the I think people, maybe medics, are conditioned not to feel any emotions because someone else was falling down your face, someone had fainted, and we are in a hospital, but surprisingly no one was concerned. It's other patients who are trying to administer first aid. The rest of the hospital staff are going on with their business like nothing is happening. This was a pregnant woman carrying a child falling down, and no one has bat an eyelid. Life is going on as usual. It's other patients who are struggling to take the child from her, making sure she doesn't land on the floor. And I just said, if this is the future of my healthcare, this is it. I'm going home dying. So I switched hospitals because of that. Not that the other hospital was extraordinary, but at least
better.
there was some semblance of order. I think the medical profession, they can do a lot more. It's called bedside manner.
Yes, etiquette.
Just the way you talk to patients, it makes a difference between that patient taking that advice positively or negatively.
Yes, I agree with you on that. What were some of the adverse effects of treatment for you personally?
I used to have dreadlocks. I lost my hair.
Sorry.
So that's one. It's now growing back. I was working and there was no way I was going to let anyone at work know that things are not good, because I was relying on my job's insurance cover, medical insurance cover. So I think I had that pressure to deliver at work while still going for chemo. But chemo would drain me energy-wise. I would have very little energy. The first few sessions, for the first 2 days, eating was a struggle. I was struggling with nausea, and I was always struggling to get the iron up for the next session, the iron levels. So, and the eating was already poor. But then there was also times when I think I would just feel feverish. But thankfully, I never had the fever never got to a level that I needed to be admitted. I could manage it with medication. Thankfully, my employer, at least my boss, was aware, and they would support me on the days that I have chemo. Like, I would put them at towards the end of the week, so that I can recuperate over the weekend before reporting back on Monday. So, and they were also very understanding, because it naturally slowed the kind of work that I was doing. I was a bit slow on it. Then I was also, other effects that I had not considered was, aside from the physical effects, just the fact that you've had surgery, you've had the mastectomy, and you're walking around with a scar. It took me months before I could even know how to dress myself, because this was a whole new. I had to learn about prosthetics and how to use them. I had to figure out what I can put on to make myself feel comfortable going to work, because I work in a yard and there are many people, so you don't also want everyone asking you what's going on.
Yeah, right.
Then, because of the medication, I gained a lot of weight. So that's another issue of how I perceive myself. I would look in the mirror and I don't recognize who is in the mirror anymore. Like, the person that I knew was not there. She's changed, the body has changed. I have to also now get new wardrobe. find out what works for me. And that was a struggle even on esteem. And lastly, I think the other effect that I've had is just the others were medical, like they were dealt with on a medical basis. There was a time radio had caused me to have a swelling on my, what's that thing, you can't swallow.
Throat.
There was like a throat, it closed up at some point. And then the other, I had stomach bugs throughout every time, and then my immunity, I think, was also low. So every other time I would have a stomach bug, I would have having fevers back and forth. And then even today, some of the medication, some of the supplements that I take every 3 months, it is guaranteed that the second day of taking that, I will be down with like a fever. It feels like a fever. Like I'm not able to move freely. I'm feeling general malaise, weak, and cold, warm, So, but I'm just learning how to live with that.